Alright, so hi everyone, welcome to today's class. Thanks for coming. Today we're going to be talking about meta comps on the new patch for TFT, and not only are we going to talk about specific comps, but just the overall play style and like different strategies to approach the game. Right now there's like about 3 general ones. So this is just putting it onto paper. You probably subconsciously do this or even think about it in your games, but at least this time you'll be able to see it on paper. So as mentioned, not only the comps, but like the strategies we'll talk about. So there's 3 main strategies right now. It revolves around, number 1 is reroll. So rerolling around 1, 2, 3 costs, and then pushing levels after you've hit. The second one is your level 8 all-in. But then all-in is kind of a loose term. You are stabilizing on level 8, but then you are looking to go level 9. So it's like, is you're rolling down on level 8, and then you're sitting once you're stable. So I'll explain that after. And then the next one, or the last one, is going fast 9. There's certain openers that allow you to do this. And in today's meta, you have to go level 9 most of the like I would say like maybe 90% of the time you have to be going level 9 in order to contest a reasonable top 4, even higher. So going 9 is extremely important. The only odd case I'd say is like staying level 7, level 8 for the MF reroll comp, which is really good. So yeah, we'll talk about level 9, and then as always we'll have some time for Q&A, any reflection, and I'm happy to stay after to answer any questions. Okay, so let's get straight into today's lesson. You see a picture of Ziggs. Ziggs is probably the best backline unit right now in TFT. He will be getting nerfed next Wednesday. That will be 13.24. And the notes are actually out for that. So if you're curious about that, just search up like Mortdog patch 13.24 TFT and you can check out the changes. But for this week, you'll have 6 more days to follow today's guide. So the first one is 1 cost reroll. We have 2 options here. We have, the first one is Annie and the second one is Jinx. So we'll talk about Annie first. It's the board up here. There's 2 ways you could go about this. Of course, you either have Emo Annie or you have Spellweaver Annie. And the main difference is playing a Mumu or not. That's basically it. If you have Emo Annie, then you don't need to play a Mumu and you just have 2 Emo Annie. And then if you don't have Emo Annie, so you have Spellweaver, then you do have to play the Mumu for 2 Emo. The reason for this is because 2 Emo, this trait, reduces your max mana by 20%, right? So then Annie has 50 mana, so then being able to go to 40 means that with 2 Shojins, you'll get 1 Shojin from 3 Superfan. So once you have your Nico, Lilia, and Kennen, not only are these like pretty good units, they also synergize with each other, right? So like Nico synergizes with Echo, Lilia will synergize with Echo. Nico synergizes with Kennen, Lilia synergizes with Echo, and then Echo again synergizes true damage with Kennen. So the whole front line, they just work together with their one big happy family, and they provide Annie with 1 of her 2 Shojins. All you have to do is build another Shojin on Annie, and then your third item will be attack speed. Either a Nashor's or a Rage Blade is fine. Even I think Red Buff is fine. Anyways, so now that we have established that you have 2 Shojins on Annie, remember you get 10 mana for every auto attack, so then +5/+5 from the Shojins, that means 20 mana for every auto attack, which means you only need 2 auto attacks to fulfill your 40 mana cap now. So this is the reason why we do Emo. Now Annie with this attack speed, she'll just attack 2 times and then cast, so super good, and it all works together. Just remember 2 Emo, 2 Shojins. That's basically it. And then so that's how you itemize Annie basically. For both of these comps, including Jinx, you do not want to be investing any gold into leveling until after you've hit your Annie or Jinx 3. The reason being is because these are 1 cost units, so they're low cost units or low tier units. You want to be staying lower level to hit low cost units. Now, if you don't spend any gold into leveling at all, which is correct because you want to make as much gold as possible so you have gold to roll. If you don't level at all, you'll still be level 4 by 3-1. And stage 3-1 is the round right after Krugs. So Krugs just finishes, you get a little bit extra gold, you get your items, and then 3-1 hits, combat round, the start of stage 3. You'll still be level 4, which is the highest chance, or highest reasonable chance to start rolling for your 1 cost units. Like technically levels 1 to 3, you have a higher chance of seeing 1 cost units, but you're not rolling then because you have no gold. So it'll be a level 4 on 3-1 if you don't level at all, which you shouldn't be. And then once you have hit your Annie 3 or your Jinx 3 in this case, then you can start pushing levels. You can start going level 5 and then start going level 6. And then, as we see here, The goal for all this, right? This is stage 3. We have our 3 here. Once we've spiked on stage 3 with either our Annie 3 or our Jinx 3, we're then going to start pushing levels into, because you're going to be stable. No one else has a 3-star at this point. And then, as you may have guessed, 3-star units are stronger than 2-star units, unless they're very different in tiers. So then stage 3 and stage 4, you're going to be super stable, you'll be winning, and then you're going to try to temple into level 8, level 9 board. Because after you've hit these 3 stars, well, at least for Annie, once you hit Annie, you're not rolling for any of these 3 stars. You're trying to go level 8 and then level 9 with like Ari duo. Punk is a bit different. I'll explain that in a second. But let's say once you've hit your Annie, you're stable for a bit and you're going to be trying to push levels. One thing I'll note for this scenario up here, when you're level 4 rolling down on 3-1, you want to roll to a minimum of 32 to 34 gold on 3-1. And the reason for this is because by going down to this minimum of gold, you'll still be able to make 40 gold after. The reason being is because as you know, everybody gets 5 gold per level, or 5 gold per round, and then we'll have 3 gold for the interest of being at 30, and then we have this left over to 4. So then you'll go to 40, and then 40 makes 50, and then you can start slow rolling from there if you haven't hit your Annie from that initial roll down, or your Jinx from that initial roll down. I say 34 because technically we see 34 and then we hit the roll button, and then let's say we see a lot of units in our shop, well then you're going below the threshold and you might have a harder time making 40 that next round. So just around 32 to 34 you want to roll, get as many of those 1-cost units as you can, and then start econing back up and rolling down after. So that's a lot of information about 1-cost rerolls. This is really good. Like, the main part is you're going to spike really hard on stage 3 and early stage 4. But the thing is, 1-cost units get outscaled by 4-cost units and 5-cost units. So most of the time you're just going to be playing for top 4, unless you super high roll and you don't have to invest that much gold into rolling and you can start just pumping levels. Or let's say you get an emblem. If you get a punk emblem, so this is going to be a spat plus a glove, then you are able to go 6 punk if you have the punk chosen, and then 6 punk is extremely good. You can put that punk spat on the York later, attack damage and health, which is exactly what York wants, and you're good to go. So that's in the cases of high rolling, then you're probably going to go higher than top 4. And then last but not least, something that is a bit interesting, you may not have thought about this set, is you actually prefer combat augments over econ this set. So you might be thinking, wow Max, I'm re-rolling, don't I just want as much gold as I want? Well, especially for the top case, punk might be a bit different, but I don't think not that much, because of a couple of things. The first one is we're only rolling for one main unit, right? Annie and Jinx. Yes, we will be rolling for Pantheon on level 6/7 depending on your spot after. But the main thing is we're not 3-starring all of our units, right? We don't care about 3-star Lilia, we don't care about 3-star Cannon, we don't care about 3-star Vi, and then we're even dropping, or we'll drop one of them if you have the punk chosen, so then it'll be 4, and then you can get rid of like Vi or Twitch depending on which one you don't have items for. So this just means that you're rolling for 1 unit, and because of the chosen mechanic, we already get 3 copies. So then just by having the chosen, you're already 3 out of 9. Compared to other sets where it's like, oh, I want to play this chosen, then you find one, or you want to play this unit, this reroll, then you find 1 copy, you're only 1 out of 9, and it's harder to hit. So prefer combat augments. That'll help you spike your board because you're going to be having an easy time of hitting anyway. So that's everything you should think about for 1-cost. The 2 main ones are Annie and Jinx. I already explained the Annie items, and so this is a magic damage composition, and then Jinx is attack damage, physical damage composition. You want the Rage Blade, Last Whisper, and then +1. +1 could be Giant Slayer, could be Death Blade, could be Red Buff, and then you just want tank items for your Pantheon and your frontline. The 2 extra slots can be 2 more Guardians, so it could be like Nico plus Cannon early game, swap the Cannon for a Thresh later, and then it really depends on your chosen Jinx, because if it's Rapid Fire Jinx, then you just could be playing this for Punk, and you don't have to play another Rapid Fire. If it's Punk Jinx, then as I mentioned, drop one of these 2, depending on who you don't have items for, and then you can play like a Senna. Eventually this can go into Illusion and go from there. But that's all for 1-cost reroll. I'll keep going. So the second one is going to be Katarina for our 2 costs. And I'll say right now, this unit is overtuned. If you want LP and you really like rerolling, then this is your champion or unit to play. The reason why is the Katarina Chosen. Her headliner effect, or I keep saying Chosen, I'm sorry, technically it's called headliner. The headliner effect is her ability on the fourth bounce of her blade. So she'll throw a blade, and then normally I think it bounces 3 times, but if you have a headliner, it'll bounce 4 times. The fourth bounce is 45% bonus damage, which is nuts. This is a huge amount, and most of the time, if you have played against this, you'll be thinking, oh my god, I just got 1 shot on the last one. So that's why it's so good. You'll be re-rolling on level 6, because level 6 now is the highest chance of seeing 2 cost units, which we are doing, 2 cost reroll, which means, so ignore these for now. This is going to be our level 6 board, so Katarina is our main carry. Similar to the Annie board, we have our super fans, so they're here again, Nico, Kennen, and Lilia, and then our other 2 will be crowd divers, and you want the crowd diver Chosen on your Katarina for 4 crowd diver at this point, and then later, once you've hit your Katarina 3, you want to add your Zed and your Kiana on level 8, well level 7 and then level 8, and then with Kiana she'll start farming items, and then that is how you can test your higher placements of top 1, 2, or 3. But for the most part, this is just going to be our board. Hodge is going to be her superfan item, so then you want to make Jewel Gauntlet, and then your last item is just either AP item or another Hodge. I think 2 Hodges plus Hand of Justice, that's what Hodge is. 2 Hodges plus 1 Jewel Gauntlet is good enough. And then make sure you have some sort of shred, so like an Ionic Spark on Nico is good. And yeah, pretty straightforward, pretty good comp. Okay, you've probably seen this one before. Now we're moving more into the 3 cost reroll, but there's still a 2 cost aspect to this. We are in Bard, Misfortune, Jazz. This comp is terrorizing the NA ladder. Most of the time, there will be 2 people contesting it per game. And yeah, very good. So what you can do is either carry Bard or Misfortune depending on the headliner. Of course, Misfortune is better because, well, she's a 3 cost versus a 2 cost. Also, this Misfortune unit is just way too good. The superfan items for Bard is Adaptive Helm, and then superfan item for Misfortune is Deathblade. And let's say you get the Bard superfan or Bard headliner, you'll be wanting to go Shojin +1, and then Misfortune will go Rageblade plus Last Whisper. Most of these reroll boards have the super fan in it, so once again we see our super fans Kennen, Lilia, and Nico. This like quad, it's not a trio, but like these 4 units always go extremely well together just because of the Guardian, True Damage, and Sentinel, and super fan trait. So most of the time you'll be playing these 4 together. And then we have our Jazz, and then our Big Shot, and we even have KDA. Hence the strange positioning. You don't always have to position like this. Just make sure that you follow your KDA patterns. And yeah. The 2 best augments to go with this is That's Jazz Baby. On level 7, I'll talk about when to actually reroll on this. Even though Bard is a 2 cost, and I mentioned that level 6 is the highest chance of seeing 2 cost units, which is true. This is not false. I did not lie. I think it is 40% chance. I might be lying here, but it's really high. Level 7 actually goes to only 35% for 2 costs, which means you lose a 5% chance of seeing a 2 cost per slot in your shop if you go to level 7, but this increases your chance of seeing 3 cost units. And ideally, even though you just have a headliner for 1, you want to be going for both Bard 3 and Misfortune 3 if feasible, even Nico 3 and Echo 3 if possible. But the whole point is you want to be going level 7 for this board. The reason why is it fits all of these synergies in. This is 7 synergies on level 7. It works all well together, and losing 5% chance of seeing a 2 cost when rerolling is not that big of a deal, especially when it increases your chance of seeing 3 costs as well, which is 1, 2, 3. You have a ton of 3 costs here. So yeah, make sure you're going level 7 and not rolling on level 6, even though Bard might be your main carry. And then that's why That's Jazz Baby is so good. If you have 3 traits in, it gives Jazz extra HP per round. 5 traits in, they now get extra attack speed as well. And then 7 traits in, they get attack damage and ability power, which you might have guessed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It works out. It's so perfect. We love it. Level 7, 7 traits. That's Jazz. We love Jazz. And then the last one is Bigger Shots. Basically, the Big Shot units, they'll do extra damage in a 1 hex radius, depending on what they hit. And it's just more damage. It actually is bugged right now, so technically it's doing more damage than it's supposed to, but it's still in the game, so I think it's still ethical to take it. So yeah, very good. I'd say one of the best comps right now. And this is the one exceptions where you don't have to be going level 9 to really contest like a good win or even a good like top 1, 2, 3, 4. Just because once you hit Misfortune with these 3 items and then Bard with these 3 items, it's great. And then Frontline, make sure that you're itemizing either your Echo or your Nico, depending on what you hit 2-star first. Any tank items are fine. Just make sure you have tank items to stall for your backline. Okay, I talked about this comp before in last week's class, so I won't go over it too much. These are the exact same pictures, the exact same slide. Nothing has changed. Samira Country, 3-cost reroll. You're going to be rolling on level 7 because of 3 costs. So this is level 7 board. This is level 8 board. It's a bit higher capped because it's Executioner chosen for the Samira. So it's a little bit harder to get to, but it's a higher cap for sure. And yeah, I won't explain too much. You're going to be wanting to go for Samira 3, Vex 3, and Amumu 3. And then if you have the 5-country version or the country Samir version, since you're re-rolling a lot more on level 7, you can go for the Urgot as well. The reason why you don't go for Urgot, or ideally you don't go for Urgot in the bottom version, is because you have 4 Executioner enabled. So you really want to be focusing more on your Executioner units, so 1, 2, and 3, rather than your Urgot that doesn't have Executioner. Okay, we're going to move on to the juicier stuff, level 8 all in. This occurs most of the time on 4-2, so stage 4, round 2, or stage 4, round 1. This is the case if you're super rich and if you're almost dead, which is very unfortunate, but sometimes this is the case. You might be not having a good early game, so a weak opener, but a lot of money. So then you cannot afford to wait that one more round to take that one more loss. So sometimes you have to send it early on 4-1. But if not, then 4-2 is the perfect interval, or I guess the regular interval for going level 8. And then the whole point of this is you don't want to be sending it to 0 gold. This is a mistake. Sometimes you have to, and then you play for a top 4 or even a 5th. But the whole goal of this is to stabilize using as little gold as possible. So I know it's not reasonable, or not always reasonable. These boards can take a lot of gold to hit. These are just some examples of like stabilized level 8 boards. And when I show these boards, not everything has to be 2-star. It's really lobby dependent. Like if you scout around your lobby is weak, then you're like, hey, I don't have to be extremely strong to be stable. Stable, by the way, means either you're just winning fights. You don't have to crush everyone like 8-0, like 8 units. You just have to be at least winning them or not taking bad losses. That's basically what stabilize means. Yeah, so the whole point of this is you're level 8, which means you have a 30% chance of seeing a 4-cost chosen. Sorry, 4-cost headliner. And then you'll be playing around your 4-cost headliner with some sort of suitable front line. And then sit is basically just stop rolling. Once you're strong enough, try to econ back up and then look to go level 9 on either 5-1 or 5-2. Sometimes even 5-5 is fine. Some good 4-cost headliners in this meta right now is Twisted Fate, so Disco Twisted Fate or Dazzler Twisted Fate, Pentakill or Executioner Karthus, or like KDA / True Damage Executioner Akali. These are very good chosens. You can even play around Ezreal. Caitlyn is a bit weak right now, so I wouldn't recommend Caitlyn. And then if you already have a strong backline, so let's say you already have like a Twisted Fate or like a Karthus, then you can go for frontline chosen. So either like a Blitzcrank, Zac headliner is a big weak right now, and then Poppy is hidden very good. Just because people don't really know how to play around her. Even I haven't mastered her, but a Poppy with like a Warmogs, Steadfast Heart, or even just a Thieves Gloves on her is super good. And you just want to stabilize, but you don't want to send it to 0 or at least donkey roll, because capping yourself at 8 is like capping yourself on level 7 as of last set. And if you know what that means, then you know that there's a much higher ceiling that you want to get to upgrade your board. So try not to send it to 0 or roll to 0, and sit with a reasonable amount of gold. Even like 20 gold is fine. Sitting at 10 gold is even fine, as long as you're just not donkey rolling every round. So then you give yourself the potential to go level 9, and then on level 9 you could then decide, okay, is my chosen good enough where I could just add 5-cost units like Alawi, Ziggs, as I mentioned, is the best, right? Or like Yorick. Or am I selling my chosen and hoping for a 5-cost headliner? Because like if you get a 5-cost headliner Ziggs, you're basically top 4. The unit is super good. It's automatically a 2-star. But the thing with this is on level 9, you only have a 10% chance of seeing a 5-cost headliner, which is really low, right? Because that means 90% of the time you'll be seeing a 4-cost, and 90% of the time is a lot of percent of the time. So this is the risk you take. Yeah, keep that in mind. Most of the time, like, you have to take it anyway, and then if you don't find any 5-cost headliner, then you just take a 4-cost headliner and you keep playing that way. But that's the whole point of level 8. At least that's the difference from last set or just previous metas. Maybe this will change next week. I think actually will. But for this next week, then this is the play you want to go about. And then the very last one, Fast 9. I won't talk about Fast 9 yet. I just want to show some examples of level 9 boards. So there's kind of 2 front lines you could stick with. Alawi's in both. Alawi is so good. You're always going to be playing Alawi on your endgame board on level 9. So the first one is Sentinel. So this main thing is with Blitzcrank. If you have like a Blitzcrank 2, or even just like Blitzcrank on your board and transitioning is a bit too tough from your spot, you're going to be playing Zac, Echo, Alawi, Blitzcrank. This enables you to get your Sentinel and your Bruiser front line, and then you put your Tentacles on the outside, so then they get hit first from the enemy carries, and this is your front line. Good. You play whatever backline you want. Something like this is fine. Yeah. The second one is with Set, York, Alawi, Thresh. I think this actually caps higher because York as a carry or even just as like a frontline is extremely good and is better than the Zac and Blitzcrank. Also Thresh gives CC as well, and late game CC is better than just raw tank. And then if you have AD items or like just bruiser items, then definitely York as well. So these are some examples, and then the backline is going to be very similar, most of the time it will be similar. In these 2 cases I presented, it's a bit different. But the first one, you're going to be playing around Ziggs most of the time in both cases. And then you can either play around Sona with attack speed or damage depending on your items. And then this is a similar like for if you get like a Dazzler setup. And then this one down here is more like attack damage oriented with Ziggs as a secondary carry as well. Something to note, I'm pretty sure it doesn't even get patched next Wednesday, but attack speed on Lucian does not increase his number of bullets, even though it says that in his text. So for now, avoid building attack speed on Lucian and just build, well, technically, I don't think the unit's very good. So, but if you were to put items on him, it would be attack damage items, like something like a Deathblade, a Infinity Edge, and then Last Whisper, or Giant Slayer, or even like a Shojin. But you want to avoid the Ginsus or the like, I should just avoid Ginsus. Put the Ginsus on Ziggs instead. It's 100 times better. Yeah. So this is your board that you'll be looking to get. Let's talk about how to get there, hence the Fast 9. So, Econ Opener. There has been a very subtle shift in meta where Econ is arguably more important than combat augments. Not only because some of the combat augments trailed in or like trailed over from set 9, and they got nerfed hella hard or very hard at the end of set 9, which means that in set 10, if they're unchanged, then there's still like not strong combat augments. Some of these come to mind like long distance pals, tons of stats, right? So then now econ openers or just econ augments have a lot more value, like hedge fund, right? So let's say you have a econ opener. Let's say you have either this is from augments or you have Heartsteel in, and you have some form of extra econ, some form of extra money compared to your opponents. So this, especially paired if you have a strong opener as well. So like if you get something like a super fan chosen, namely Kennen or even like Lilia, Kennen's a bit better. So basically the early game, what you want to look for potential fast 9, you can't fast 9 every game, but sometimes if you have the money at the start and you're able to make your quick like 10 into 20 into 30, 40, 50, and you have either a strong unit opener, so like a super fan chosen Kennen with like a Lilia, a Nico, and then you have some form of backline like even a Kaisa Corki or like a rapid fire Jinx with something else. So your options at the start is look for some form of extra money, or if you have some form of extra money, and especially if it's paired with a strong opener or even just like an average opener, even a Heartsteel opener, which is another form of econ, so econ or econ strong opener or just econ in general, then fast 9 might be an option for you. So that's what to look for at the very start, right? And then the next part is on 3-2-4-2. It's just augment related. If you find a second econ augment on 3-2, so either like hedge fund or rich get richer, then this could be another symbol where you could just like bypass rolling until you're level 9. And then 4-2, right, your very last augment timing is the one you want to look out for because of this augment here, blank slate. Now, this used to be a meme. It used to be, people used to not know how to play around this, and some might still not. Basically, what this does is it sells your entire board and your entire bench for 2 times the gold value, right? So if your board and your bench worth is like 50 gold, you're going to get plus 100 gold, but everything will be sold, and then your next 8 rolls are free that round. So what happens on 4-2 is if your board is has a lot of money on it, like, or has a lot of value, and you have a full bench, so like on 4-1, you don't have to. I would actually advise, if you haven't seen blank slate on 3-2, on 4-1 before this augment might come, instead of just like selling all the quote unquote useless units you're not going to play on your bench and then like pumping into levels because you want to go level 8 the next round, you can even just hold it on your bench for this potential of blank slate for that extra money, because the gold value is doubled, right? So even just holding it and then selling it for double is still extra money. And then depending on your gold, you're either going to be at like 100 or 130. It's absurd. You get a lot. You either roll a little bit on level 8, or if you're very rich, you just send it to 9 that turn, and then you roll for one of these 2 boards. And because you're rolling so much gold on level 9, you will probably have some chance of seeing a 2-cost headliner. Like I did this my last game. I had 100 gold, 100 something gold, and then I leveled to 9. I had like 40 gold depending on my spots. I had a chosen headliner Sona, and then the rest of my board was not very good. I had like 1 star everything else, but some people are still level 7 on 4-2, right? So let's compare like a level 7 board versus a level 9 plus a 2-star headliner. I can't type anymore, or I can't write. You'll already know that like the level 9 board will most of the time be stronger, and then the next round you can stabilize and work around that. So this is basically how fast 9 is. It's really common in high elo. In most of my games, I see people just playing like the fast 9, but then it becomes kind of a lottery because there's only 10 copies of each 5-cost unit, and then once 5 copies of a 5-cost unit is out of the pool, you can no longer see the chosen of that, right? So 10 copies of every 5-cost unit, and then once 5 are out, the headliner of that unit is gone. You won't be able to see anymore. So it's that's why fast 9, emphasis on the fast, is really relevant right now, because it's kind of a race to see who can like pick up the units first, or who can find the units first. Because if you slow 9 and you're rolling with all the money in the world, but all the units are already out, you will not be able to find what you want to find. So that's why fast 9 is a relevant strategy right now, and that's all. So the 3 things we talked about today, I'll just sum up. Reroll, so 1, 2, 3 cost reroll. We talked about the level 8s, quote unquote, all in, and then you want to build up your econ and try to go level 9 after. And then the last one is just going fast 9.